I think every front-end developer should, at some point in their career, empathize with web users with disabilities. I think all front-end developers should learn about accessibility. A common misconception is that accessibility is about making your website or software work for people who are deaf or blind by testing it with a screen reader or making sure keyboard navigation works. This is a very limited worldview. If you have this worldview, chances are you will not be able to convince your manager, your boss, your product owner that it is worth spending time on accessibility. If you are asking for additional time to do a specific type of work, they might deny you that because this user group is too small. There are too little blind or deaf people in the world. It is not profitable enough. But the good news is, even if your product owner flat out tells you there is no time or money to spend on this thing, you can still do a lot of things at little or even no cost by approaching things differently. In this video, I want to show you a whole range of usage examples, some of which might surprise you, with the purpose of opening up the opportunities for improved accessibility at little or no cost. Accessibility is defined as making the web work for people with a diverse range of abilities. By writing our HTML, by picking our colors, by picking our fonts, by deciding on UX flows for interaction design, we are often, without intention, coding in a specific preferred way of using the software. We're coding that into the software. We are making assumptions about the user, about the user's environment, about the user's abilities. These assumptions is the thing we should challenge. That is what accessibility is about. Delivering great accessibility is realizing that the many decisions and assumptions that we make are actually design decisions that greatly affect how a human, how a user can use something. Will it actually assist them, this design decision, or will it impair them from using it? By becoming aware of these decisions, we can change them. The first category of assumptions is hardware, and this goes beyond the basic responsive design things like, do you have a mouse? What is the size of your screen? This is also about, do you have a slow computer? If you need to do many animations, is your CPU able to handle it? Do you have a slow or fast internet connection? Do you have a full or an empty battery? A great example is that of detecting low battery level. There's a browser API for this. If the use case is that you are looking for textual content on your device, on crappy airport Wi-Fi, you are only looking for textual content. Why would we serve you up a bunch of JavaScript? Why would we serve you up a bunch of CSS animations that all drain your battery further? This doesn't help the user. Another great example is that about 10 years ago, we got laptops with touchscreens. They have a mouse and they also have a touchscreen. And this defied the rules we had back then. Everything was either an iPad or a desktop or a laptop computer, and you either had a mouse or you didn't. And if you didn't, you were a touch device, you were a tablet, so we wouldn't rely on certain things. If you would have a very basic if statement separating these two use cases from each other, then you would not be able to serve this third case, which has properties of both. The next category is software, where it's important to think beyond the browser. There are, of course, browser differences. Firefox, Chrome, Safari, they definitely have different interactions and form fields and ways they're working, but also software interacting with browsers, like a screen reader or an ad blocker. And let's look at that last example, because companies often say, I don't want to cater to users with ad blockers because I make my money with ad blockers. On the other hand, there are users out there who don't use an ad blocker because they don't want to see ads, but they're using it only because they may be prone to seizures. They have seen too many ads in the past which are too flashy or a certain kind of animation, and that triggers a seizure. So they, out of protection from themselves, are not going to look at ads anymore via this ad blocker, a great tool to help them solve this problem. Do we really want to deny these users the content? Another example is people who are using custom style sheets for things like increasing the contrast or forcing a website that doesn't support dark mode, forcing it to dark mode. These are add-ons in the browser that inject style sheets automatically, or when you want it into a specific website, it's just another style sheet that the user has written. There are also people who are reading a transcript of a video or are watching a video with only subtitles on and the sound turned off. And these are not only people who are deaf, these could be you or me who are in a public space and we don't want to turn our phone speaker on and we forgot our earbuds, but we still want to have access to this content. You either have access to it or you don't, depending on whether your subtitles, your transcript, is okay. The third category is language. English is spoken in many parts of the world, but for most English speakers, it's not their first language. Complex language will, at best, slow people down in understanding it, but at worst, confuse people or make them interpret information completely wrong. And even if people are highly educated and are able to understand complex language, research has shown that they still prefer to read plain English and simple language because it's just quicker to understand it that way. A great example is the Gov.uk style guide, which specifies that short sentences and simple vocabulary is a requirement for all content on the websites. Next, culture. In some Asian cultures, red is the good luck color. Therefore, its use can be inappropriate for certain use cases. In Western culture, red means an error or a warning. So it's a completely different thing. In the Arab world, the Red Cross movement is the Red Crescent movement because the cross is associated with Christianity. Next, physical abilities. 8% of men are colorblind. Retirees often have multiple disabilities like impaired vision or hearing or hand tremors are also quite common. But even if you don't belong to these groups, there are many interactions out there that can be frustrating to users. Let me show you an example. Say I have a link in Notion and I want to copy its URL. If I mouse over this link, I will get a pop-up and I see a copy icon. This icon doesn't have text, so I will have to interpret it. This is an accessibility issue on itself, but let's go there. Let's try and click it. Within a second of moving outside of the right area, this tooltip is removed from the screen. I need to be either very fast, and I cannot overshoot, or I should be very slow and very precise, which might be something I have difficulty with if I have broken my arm or if something else is going. If I have hand tremors, then this can be a very frustrating interaction. Now, I am not trying to bash Notion in any way. I love Notion, I use it for many things, but this is an optimization that could be made. And the last category is mental ability. I already mentioned it before. Using simple language can remove the barriers for a whole range of mental disabilities. Simple language is just something that will make life easier for many people. Another example is dyslexia, which is very common. Fonts can either be easy, somewhat easy, or really difficult to read, depending on the font. Being able to change the font via a custom style sheet or in a different way feature in your website is greatly improving the life of the user. To learn more about this, to empathize even more with users of the web, which we're all human, I would recommend to look at the stories of web users at the Web Accessibility Initiative. There's quite a few good stories. It's really good content. They have all kinds of examples and they sketch the situation. They talk about which abilities or disabilities and barriers are there, which tools and techniques can help improve it for them. It's a really great way to learn. There's a lot more on this website. I recommend to just browse and read as much as you can to learn about how to make accessible content. To summarize, accessibility is taking the stance that you care about all humans. The path to delivering better accessibility is learning about the many examples of actual usage. That way, those unconscious design decisions can become conscious decisions. Let's build escalators instead of elevators. If it breaks, you're stuck in an elevator, but an escalator becomes a stairs. Yes, the experience suffers, but you can still use it. You're not locked, trapped inside. It is not a barrier of usage. And that's it. I hope this was helpful. If I've made a mistake, if you have any thoughts or comments, if you have a request for a future video, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching.